The street was quiet that afternoon. Too quiet. A long black luxury car rolled slowly into the neighborhood. Its polished surface reflected the faded houses that lined the road. This was not the kind of car people usually saw here. The engine hummed softly as it came to a stop in front of a small, aging house. The door opened. A tall man stepped out. His suit was sharp. His watch alone could buy every house on the street. 9 years. 9 long years had passed since he last stood here. Back then he was just a struggling young man with a dream and an old backpack. Now he was something else entirely. A billionaire. But wealth was not the reason he had returned. Success was not what brought him back to this street. No, he came back because of a question that had followed him for almost a decade. A question that never stopped haunting him. His mother. 9 years ago, she suddenly disappeared from his life. No explanation. No phone calls. No letters. No messages. At first he believed something must have happened. Maybe she moved. Maybe she was angry. Maybe she needed time. But weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. And the silence never ended. Now, after building an empire and traveling across the world, he had finally come back for one reason. Answers. He looked up at the house. The same cracked paint. The same narrow porch. Nothing had changed. Or so it seemed. He walked slowly toward the front door. Step by step. Then suddenly he heard something that made him stop. Laughter. Children's laughter. It echoed softly from inside the house. His eyebrows tightened. That made no sense. His mother lived alone. Or at least she always had. He moved closer to the door. The laughter grew louder. 2 voices. Maybe 3. His heart began to beat faster. He knocked. Once. Then again. Footsteps approached from inside the house. The door slowly opened. His mother stood there. Older now. Her hair streaked with gray. Her eyes widened the moment she saw him. Shock froze across her face. But before either of them could say a word, something unexpected happened. 2 small children ran past the hallway behind her. They were chasing each other, laughing loudly. The man froze where he stood. His mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. His mother looked terrified. Then one of the children suddenly stopped. The little boy looked directly at the stranger standing at the door. He tilted his head in confusion. And then he asked the question that changed everything. "Grandma, who was that man?" The billionaire felt the world shift beneath his feet. In that single moment, a terrifying thought crossed his mind. The life he believed he understood. The truth about his own family. It might have been a lie. For 9 entire years. The man at the door did not move. For a moment, the world around him seemed to slow down. The sound of the children's footsteps echoed softly through the hallway. His mother stood in front of him, frozen. Her hands trembled slightly on the edge of the door. Neither of them spoke. And in that silence, memories began to rise. Memories from a different time. 9 years earlier. Back when life was much simpler and much harder. Back then, the small house behind her was not just a building. It was their entire world. The young man who now stood in an expensive suit had once lived there as a boy with very little money, very little comfort. But one thing he never lacked was love. His mother had raised him alone. There had been no father in the house. No relatives who came to help. Just the 2 of them. She worked constantly. 2 jobs. Sometimes 3 when things became difficult. In the mornings, she cleaned offices in town. In the afternoons, she worked at a small grocery store. At night, she sometimes sewed clothes for neighbors just to earn a few extra dollars. Her hands were always tired. Her eyes were always heavy. But she never complained, because everything she did had one purpose. Her son. She believed in him with a kind of faith that never shook. Even when the electricity was cut for a few days. Even when they had to eat the same cheap meals every week. She would smile and say the same words. "One day, you will become something great." The young boy would laugh. He never really believed it, but his mother always did. As the years passed, he grew older. Life remained difficult. Bills piled up. Dreams felt distant. But inside him, a quiet determination began to grow. He did not want his mother to work herself into exhaustion forever. He wanted to change their life. So one day, he made a decision, a risky one. He would leave the town. He would chase opportunity somewhere bigger, somewhere with possibilities. The night before he left, the two of them sat together in the small kitchen, the same kitchen that still existed behind that door. The light above the table flickered slightly. His mother placed a warm meal in front of him. Neither of them spoke for a while. Finally, she looked at him and asked a quiet question. "Are you sure about this?" He nodded slowly. "If I stay here, nothing will ever change." She studied his face for a long moment. Then she smiled. Not a sad smile, a proud one. "Go," she said it gently. "Go and build the life you deserve. Just promise me one thing." He leaned forward. "What is it?" She reached across the table and held his hand. "Come back one day. Come back successful." He laughed softly. "I will. I promise." That promise stayed with him. The next morning, he left town with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. The beginning was brutal. Long days, sleepless nights, endless rejection. But he refused to give up. Slowly, things began to change. A small business idea turned into a real company. The company grew. Investors arrived. Opportunities expanded. Years passed. Success followed success. The boy who once struggled to pay rent became something few people ever become, a billionaire. But there was one part of his life that never followed the same success. His mother. Shortly after he left town, something strange happened. Their phone call stopped. At first he assumed she was simply busy. He called again. No answer. He sent letters. No reply. He left messages. Nothing. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. The silence continued. Sometimes his messages were marked as read. But there was never a response. He tried everything. Different phone numbers. Emails. Even sending gifts to the house. Still nothing. Eventually, the silence began to hurt. Deeply. It made no sense. His mother had always been his biggest supporter. Why would she suddenly disappear from his life? Years passed. The question remained unanswered. And slowly, he buried the pain beneath work. Work became his escape, his distraction, his armor. He built empires. He traveled the world. People admired his success. But late at night, when everything became quiet, one thought always returned. What happened to my mother? And finally, after 9 long years of unanswered questions, he made a decision. No more wondering. No more silence. He would go home. Back to the town where everything started. Back to the small house. Back to the only person who ever believed in him before the world did. Which is why, on this quiet afternoon, he now stood at the doorway, looking into the house he once called home, looking at 2 children he had never seen before. His thoughts raced. His heart pounded. Nothing about this moment made sense. The children stared at him curiously. His mother remained silent. Then the little boy spoke again. His voice was soft. But the question hit like thunder. "Grandma, is he our dad?" The billionaire felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. The question hung in the air. "Grandma, is he our dad?" For a moment, no one moved. The man at the doorway felt his chest tighten, as if the air had suddenly grown heavier. His eyes slowly shifted toward his mother. She looked shaken, not surprised, not confused, shaken. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. The children stood there waiting, curious, innocent. The silence stretched for several long seconds. Finally, the mother cleared her throat and forced a smile. "Children, go to your room for a moment." The boy frowned slightly. "But Grandma, please." Her voice was firmer now. The children exchanged glances, then slowly turned and walked down the hallway. Their small footsteps faded into the distance. A door quietly closed. Now only 2 people remained in the living room, mother and son. 9 years of silence stood between them. The son stepped inside and closed the front door behind him. His voice was calm, but the tension inside it was impossible to hide. Whose children are those? His mother looked down at the floor. She rubbed her hands together nervously. They belong to a relative. The answer came too quickly, too rehearsed. The son studied her face. Something about the way she said it felt wrong. Not just wrong. Carefully constructed. A story prepared in advance. He spoke again. What relative? She hesitated. Just family. He took a slow breath. That explanation explained nothing, and both of them knew it. His eyes drifted toward the hallway where the children had disappeared. For the first time, he truly thought about what he had just seen. Their faces, their voices, their laughter. Something about them felt strangely familiar. Not in an obvious way, but in small details. The shape of their eyes, the curve of their smiles, the way the little boy tilted his head when he spoke. The billionaire pushed the thought aside. It was probably nothing, just imagination. Still, the feeling refused to disappear. His mother finally looked up again. Her eyes were careful, cautious. You must be tired from traveling. She said it gently. You should rest. We can talk later. But he was not tired, and he was not interested in resting. He had waited 9 years for answers. Later was no longer acceptable. But something told him pushing too hard right now would only make her close up again. So he nodded slowly. Fine. Later. But inside his mind, questions were already multiplying. The evening passed slowly. Dinner was quiet. The children returned from their room, shy at first. They watched the stranger sitting at the table with curious eyes. His mother introduced him carefully. This is an old friend of the family. The children nodded politely, but their curiosity remained, especially the little boy. He studied the billionaire's face as if searching for something. During dinner, the man barely spoke. Instead, he watched. He observed the way the children behaved, the way they spoke, the way they laughed. And again that strange feeling returned. Something about them felt close to him, almost personal. Later that evening, as the sun began to disappear behind the trees, the children went outside to play. The billionaire stood near the living room window, quietly watching. The grass in the yard had grown uneven. The same old swing still hung from the tree branch. Now the children were running around it, laughing loudly. Their voices filled the quiet street. Then something unexpected happened. The children began talking to each other. They didn't know anyone was listening. The little girl spoke first. Do you think he's nice? The boy shrugged. He looks serious. Maybe he works with Grandma. The girl kicked a small stone across the yard. I wish Mom could see us now. The boy became quiet. Mom would like him. The billionaire felt his heartbeat slow. Mom. He listened carefully. The girl continued speaking. Mom always said one day things would get better, but she never got to see it. The boy nodded sadly. She died before we were big enough to remember everything. The word struck him like a sudden gust of cold wind. Their mother died. He leaned closer to the window. His thoughts were racing. If their mother was gone, why was his mother raising them? Why had he never heard about this? And most importantly, why did she hide it from him? That night's sleep did not come easily. Questions filled his mind like a storm. By morning, he had already made a decision. If answers would not come from inside the house, he would look for them outside. The town had not changed much. The same small stores, the same quiet streets, and the same neighbors who had known him since he was a boy. Some recognized him immediately. Others needed a moment before the realization appeared on their faces. The billionaire walked slowly through the neighborhood. Eventually, he stopped near a small grocery store. A woman standing outside was arranging boxes of fruit. She had lived on the same street for years. She looked up and stared at him. Her eyes widened. Well, look who came back. He smiled politely. Hello, Mrs. Turner. She shook her head in disbelief. You disappeared for years, and now you return looking like a movie star. He laughed lightly. Life took me in strange directions. Then he asked the question that had been burning in his mind. Mrs. Turner, those children at my mother's house, who are they? The woman hesitated. Her hands stopped moving. She glanced down the street, as if checking whether someone might overhear. Those kids? Yes. Who are they? Mrs. Turner sighed softly. They showed up a long time ago, right after you left town. The billionaire felt a chill pass through him. Right after I left? She nodded slowly. Your mother suddenly started raising them. Nobody really knew where they came from. People asked questions at first, but your mother always avoided answering. The man felt the tension building again. Why would she hide something like that? Mrs. Turner lowered her voice, almost to a whisper, because she never wanted anyone asking questions. The billionaire stood there in silence, and for the first time since returning home, he realized something much deeper might be hiding behind the mystery. The night air around the small house felt unusually heavy. Inside, silence hung over the rooms like a quiet storm waiting to break. The billionaire's son sat alone at the kitchen table. A single lamp cast a soft yellow light across the worn wooden surface. The same table where he had eaten countless meals as a child. The same table where his mother used to place simple dinners after long, exhausting workdays. But tonight the memories felt different. Tonight something was wrong. Something hidden. Something that refused to stay buried. His mother had already gone to bed. Or at least she said she had. But the conversation earlier still echoed in his mind. Her nervous voice, her trembling hands, the way she avoided his eyes, and most of all, the way she changed the subject whenever he asked about the children. Those children. The thought returned again. Their faces, their eyes, the strange familiarity he could not explain. The feeling in his chest grew stronger. Something was not right. Finally, he stood up, slowly. Quietly, he walked down the hallway. Each step felt heavier than the last. The old wooden floor creaked softly beneath his feet. He stopped outside his mother's bedroom door. He listened. Nothing. Just silence. He continued down the hall, toward the small office room his mother used for paperwork and bills. The door was slightly open. He pushed it gently. The hinges made a faint sound. Inside, the room smelled of old paper and dust. Stacks of envelopes sat neatly on the desk. Old folders filled a small wooden cabinet. For a moment he hesitated. Part of him felt guilty. This was his mother's private space. But another part of him, the part that had been living with unanswered questions for 9 long years, that part refused to stop now. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. He began searching slowly, carefully, opening drawers, flipping through folders, bills, receipts, medical documents, old photographs. Nothing unusual, nothing that explained the mystery. Minutes passed, then more minutes. Just as he was about to stop, his hand paused. One of the bottom drawers felt different. It did not slide open easily, as if something inside was blocking it. He pulled harder. The drawer opened suddenly. Inside were several old files tied together with a thin ribbon. The papers looked older than the rest, almost hidden. His heartbeat quickened. Slowly, he untied the ribbon. He opened the first file, and immediately his eyes froze on the document. A birth certificate. He frowned slightly. Why would his mother hide this? Then he read the name. A child, 8 years old. His breathing slowed. He turned the page. Another document. Another birth certificate. A second child, also 8 years old. His heart began beating faster now. Something about the dates made his chest tighten. 8 years. 8 years ago. He stared at the paper longer. The room felt colder. His eyes moved slowly down the page, until they reached the line that made his stomach drop. Father's name. Blank. Completely empty. No name. No information. Just a space where the father's identity should have been. He leaned back slightly, his mind racing. 2 children, born 8 years ago. No father's name. And hidden inside his mother's drawer. His hands began to shake. He whispered quietly to himself, "This makes no sense." Then another thought struck him. 8 years ago. That was shortly after he left town. Shortly after he promised his mother he would return successful. His chest tightened. Could there be a connection? No, it could not be. He shook his head, trying to dismiss the thought. but the documents remained in his hands, silent, unanswered, demanding explanation. The next morning arrived quietly, but inside the house, the tension had only grown stronger. His mother stood in the kitchen preparing breakfast, but her movements were slow, distracted. She sensed something was wrong. Then she heard footsteps behind her. She turned. Her son stood in the doorway, holding the documents. The color drained from her face instantly. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. The silence felt unbearable. Finally, he placed the birth certificates on the table. His voice was calm, but firm. "Mother, we need to talk." Her hands trembled slightly. She sat down slowly, avoiding his eyes. He pushed the papers toward her. "I found these last night." She stared at the documents, but said nothing. He continued. "2 children, 8 years old. No father's name. Why are these hidden in your drawer?" Still she remained silent. His voice grew sharper. "Mother, tell me the truth." Her eyes began filling with tears. But instead of answering, she shook her head slowly. "Please, leave the past alone." The words stunned him. "Leave it alone?" He leaned forward, his voice filled with frustration. "You ignored me for 9 years. 9 years. Now I come home, and suddenly there are 2 children in this house. Children you refuse to explain. And you want me to leave alone?" She covered her face with her hands, tears slipping through her fingers. Her voice cracked softly. "You would not understand." He stood up, his patience disappearing. "Then help me understand." She looked at him again. Pain filled her eyes. But she still said the same words. "Please, do not ask about them." For a moment he could not believe what he was hearing. His own mother, begging him to stop searching. The frustration inside him turned into determination. If she would not tell him the truth, he would find it himself. Days passed. The tension inside the house remained thick. But something unexpected happened. The children slowly began warming up to him. They talked to him, played with him, asked him questions, and without realizing it, he began caring for them. One morning, he offered to drive them to school. His mother hesitated at first, but eventually agreed. The car ride felt surprisingly normal. The children chatted in the back seat, laughing, pointing out familiar streets. For a moment, he almost forgot the mystery surrounding them. Almost. When they arrived at the school, he stepped out of the car and walked them to the entrance. Other parents moved around the parking lot. Teachers stood near the doors greeting students. Then something unexpected happened. One of the teachers looked at him closely. Her eyes widened in recognition. She walked toward him, a warm smile forming on her face. "Well, look who is finally back." He looked confused. "Back?" The teacher nodded. "Of course. Everyone wondered when you would return." He frowned slightly. "I think you are mistaking me for someone else." The teacher laughed gently. "Oh no, there is no mistake." She glanced at the 2 children standing beside him, then back at him. The resemblance is obvious. He felt a strange tension in his chest. "What do you mean?" The teacher tilted her head slightly, as if surprised by his confusion. "Your children look exactly like you." For a moment, everything around him stopped. The sounds of the schoolyard faded. The laughter of children disappeared. His mind went completely blank. "Your children." The words echoed again, and again, and again. His breathing slowed. His heart pounded violently inside his chest. Could it be possible? Could the truth be something far more shocking than he imagined? Could those 2 children actually be his? The thought hit him like lightning. And suddenly, nothing about the past 9 years made sense anymore. That night the house felt heavier than ever before. A quiet tension filled every corner of the small home. The billionaire's son stood near the living room window. Outside the street was calm. A single street lamp cast long shadows across the yard. Inside his mind, however, nothing was calm. The teacher's words from earlier that day still echoed in his head. "Your children look exactly like you." The sentence replayed again and again, each time sounding more real, more terrifying, more possible. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to slow his breathing, trying to organize the chaos forming in his thoughts. But there was only one way to find the truth now. He turned slowly toward the hallway, toward his mother's room. The same hallway he had walked as a child. The same walls that had once felt safe. Now, every step carried weight. Every step carried answers he was not sure he was ready to hear. He knocked softly. A quiet voice came from inside. "Come in." He opened the door. His mother was sitting on the edge of her bed, her hands resting tightly together, as if she had been expecting this moment, as if she had known the truth could not stay hidden any longer. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Then he walked slowly into the room, closing the door behind him. The silence between them felt fragile, like thin glass ready to shatter. Finally he spoke, his voice calm, but firm. "Mother, we need to talk." She looked down at her hands, her fingers trembling slightly. "I know." He stepped closer, standing only a few feet away now. His voice carried a quiet intensity. "The teacher at the school today said something that made everything even more confusing." She slowly lifted her eyes. "What did she say?" He paused, as if even speaking the words might make them real. "She said the children look exactly like me." The room went completely silent. His mother closed her eyes. Tears began forming almost instantly. The reaction told him everything. His voice lowered, almost a whisper. "Tell me the truth." She tried to speak, but no words came out. Her shoulders began to shake. Years of silence, years of hidden pain, all pressing against her at once. Finally the tears broke free. She covered her face, crying quietly. He had never seen his mother like this before. Not when they were poor, not when life was hardest. But tonight the weight she carried was too much. He sat down slowly in the chair across from her, waiting. After a long moment, she finally spoke, her voice fragile. "9 years ago, right before you left town, you remember the girl you were seeing?" His mind immediately returned to that memory. A young woman, kind, gentle, the person who had believed in him when almost nobody else did. He nodded slowly. "Of course I remember her." His mother wiped her tears, her voice shaking. "You loved her very much." He nodded again. "Yes, but I had to leave. I had to chase the opportunity." His mother looked at him sadly. "Yes, you left very suddenly. You told her you would return when you succeeded." He lowered his eyes. "I thought I would see her again." His mother inhaled slowly. "But shortly after you left, something happened." He looked up again, his heart beating faster. "What happened?" His mother paused, gathering the strength to continue. "She discovered she was pregnant." The words landed like thunder. For a moment he could not breathe. Pregnant. Twins. His mind struggled to process the revelation. His voice came out almost empty. "She tried to tell me." His mother nodded slowly. "Yes, she tried many times. But your phone number had changed. You moved to another city. Your work consumed your time. She had no way to reach you." He leaned back in the chair, stunned. All those unanswered calls, all those silent years. Suddenly, they felt different. His mother continued quietly. Months passed. Her pregnancy became harder. Then something terrible happened. She became very sick. His stomach tightened. "What do you mean sick?" His mother's voice trembled. "The doctors discovered a serious illness. Something that progressed very quickly." He stared at her, his chest tightening with dread. And then, his mother whispered the words slowly. Before the children were even old enough to remember her, she passed away. The room felt colder. A heavy silence settled between them. He struggled to absorb the truth. The woman he once loved, gone, and 2 children left behind. His voice shook. What happened to them? His mother looked directly at him now. Before she died, she asked me to promise something. He leaned forward. What promise? She asked me to raise them, to protect them, to give them a home. He blinked slowly, trying to hold onto the moment. So you took them in? His mother nodded. Yes. They were newborn babies, completely helpless. There was no one else. But then her voice broke again. There was something else. He watched her closely. What? She hesitated. Afraid. Afraid that if you knew about them, you would give up everything you were chasing. Your dreams. Your future. All the work you had just begun. He stared at her in disbelief. So you hid them from me. Tears streamed down her face again. I thought I was protecting you. Protecting your future. I watched you struggle your entire life. I saw how hard you worked to escape poverty. I was afraid that responsibility would pull you back. Afraid you would sacrifice everything. So I made a decision. A painful decision. She lowered her head. I raised them myself. Silently. Without telling you. The room felt impossibly quiet. 9 years. 9 years of silence. 9 years of secrets. 9 years of 2 children growing up without knowing their father. He stood up slowly, his emotions swirling between anger, shock, grief, and something deeper, something stronger. His voice was steady now, but filled with emotion. Mother. She looked up at him cautiously. His next words cut deeper than anything else that night. Did you really believe that I would abandon my own children? The question hung in the air, heavy, painful, and impossible to ignore. His mother broke down completely. The truth she had carried for 9 years had finally been spoken. But the consequences of that truth were only just beginning. The room remained silent long after his question echoed through the air. Did you really believe that I would abandon my own children? His mother could not answer. Her tears continued falling. 9 years of fear. 9 years of guilt. 9 years of carrying a secret that had grown heavier with every passing day. The son stood still in the middle of the room. His thoughts were racing faster than he could control. Images flooded his mind. 2 newborn babies, growing into toddlers, learning to walk, learning to speak, learning to laugh. All of it happening without him even knowing they existed. 8 years of birthdays. 8 years of first days at school. 8 years of scraped knees and bedtime stories. Moments that should have belonged to a father. Moments that should have belonged to him. A deep ache spread through his chest. Not anger alone. Something deeper. Regret. The kind of regret that cannot be erased. The kind that stays with a person forever. He walked slowly toward the window, looking out into the quiet street. The world outside continued moving as if nothing had changed. Cars passing in the distance. A dog barking somewhere far away. But inside that small house, everything had changed. His entire life had shifted in a single conversation. 2 children, his children, alive, growing, waiting for answers they did not yet understand. Behind him his mother sat quietly, watching him, her heart filled with fear. She expected anger. She expected blame. She expected the moment he might turn away from her forever. After all, she had hidden the truth from him for nearly a decade. She had decided his future for him, without asking, without trusting him, without believing he could choose both dreams and responsibility. The silence stretched longer. Then footsteps echoed from outside the house. The sound of the front door opening. Children's voices filled the hallway. Laughter. Excited chatter. The children had returned from school. The son slowly turned around. His heart began beating faster again. A different kind of nervousness now. A different kind of fear. He stepped out of the bedroom, walking toward the living room. The 2 children entered the house carrying their backpacks, their faces bright with the energy of the day. Then they saw him. They stopped, both of them standing still near the doorway. For a moment no one moved. The air felt fragile, like a moment balanced between 2 worlds. One of the children stepped forward first. The boy, his voice quiet but curious. Grandma told us something. The son felt his chest tighten. The boy continued. She said you might be our dad. The little girl looked at him carefully, studying his face, almost as if searching for proof. Then she asked softly, "Is it true? Are you really our dad?" The question pierced straight through his heart. He felt his throat tighten. Words refused to come out. These 2 small faces were looking at him with hope. with innocence, with a longing they did not even fully understand. In that moment, the weight of the past 9 years crashed over him all at once. All the lost time, all the missed moments, all the memories that could never be recreated. His eyes began to fill with tears. Slowly, he lowered himself down, kneeling so he could face them at eye level. For a moment, he simply looked at them, really looked at them. The shape of their eyes, the way they held their expressions, the small similarities he could now see clearly. The teacher had been right. They did look like him. His voice finally came out. Soft, gentle. Yes. The word hung in the air. Yes. I am your father. The reaction was immediate. The children rushed toward him without hesitation, throwing their arms around his neck, holding him tightly, as if they had been waiting for this moment their entire lives. He wrapped his arms around them both, holding them close, tighter than he had ever held anything before. His tears finally fell freely. Not quiet tears, not hidden tears, but the kind that come from deep within the soul. The kind that carry both pain and love at the same time. The boy spoke while still hugging him. We always wondered who you were. The little girl nodded. Grandma said one day we might understand. The son closed his eyes, holding them even closer. His voice trembled slightly. I am so sorry I was not here before. Neither child seemed angry. Neither child blamed him. Instead, the little girl asked another innocent question. Are you going to stay now? The question was simple, but it carried the weight of their future. Behind them, the grandmother stood quietly near the hallway, watching the scene unfold. Her heart felt both relief and fear. Relief that the truth was finally spoken. Fear that her son might still resent her for the years she kept hidden. But what happened next surprised her. The son slowly stood up, still holding the children close. Then he looked toward his mother. Their eyes met. For a moment, she braced herself, expecting the anger she believed she deserved. Instead, he spoke calmly. Thank you. The words shocked her. Her voice barely came out. What? He stepped closer, still holding the children beside him. Thank you for raising them. Thank you for protecting them. Thank you for giving them a home. Without you, they would have been alone in this world. His mother broke down again, but this time the tears were different. Not only guilt, but relief. Relief that the love between them had survived the truth. The son then looked down at the two children again, his expression strong, determined, his voice steady. From today, everything will be different. The boy looked up at him. What do you mean? The son placed a hand gently on both of their shoulders, looking directly into their eyes, and he made the promise that would change all of their lives forever. From today, I will never leave again. Life did not change overnight, but slowly, day by day, something beautiful began to grow inside that small house. The billionaire son made a decision that surprised many people in his business world. He moved back to his hometown, not temporarily, not for a visit, but for good. The city that once represented struggle and poverty now became the place where his real life finally began. The large companies he had built continued running with trusted partners. Technology allowed him to manage everything from afar. But now his priorities had changed. For the first time in many years, business was no longer the center of his world. Family was. Every morning the house filled with new routines. Simple routines, but powerful ones. Breakfast together at the kitchen table. The same old wooden table where he once sat as a child. Now 3 chairs were filled with laughter. The children told stories about school. Small stories, funny moments, arguments with classmates, exciting discoveries in class. Stories that fathers are supposed to hear. Stories he had missed for too many years. At first he listened quietly, learning who they were, learning their personalities, learning their dreams. The boy loved science and building things. He often filled the house with strange little inventions made from cardboard and tape. The girl loved drawing. Her notebooks were full of colorful pictures. Sometimes she even tried to draw the father she had only recently discovered. The son began doing something he had never experienced before. He became a father. After school, he helped them with homework, explaining math problems, listening to reading assignments, encouraging them when they struggled. On weekends they played outside, running across the yard, throwing a ball, riding bicycles through the quiet streets of the neighborhood. Neighbors began noticing something different. The powerful businessman who once lived in luxury now spent his evenings chasing children across a small backyard. And he had never looked happier. Inside the house, another change slowly unfolded. His mother watched everything quietly. For years, she had carried the burden of raising the children alone. For years, she had feared the truth might destroy her relationship with her son. But now something inside her heart began to relax. She no longer had to carry the secret. She no longer had to play the role of both parent and grandparent at the same time. Now she simply watched her family grow. One evening, the three of them sat together on the living room floor. The children were finishing their homework. The boy suddenly looked up, his face thoughtful. "Dad." The word still sounded new in the room. The son looked at him. "Yes." The boy hesitated, then asked a question that had been quietly sitting in their minds. "Why didn't you come sooner?" The room grew quiet. Even the girl stopped drawing, waiting for the answer. The son leaned back slightly, thinking. How could he explain something so complicated to two young children? 9 years of silence. 9 years of misunderstanding. 9 years of a truth hidden by fear. Finally, he spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. Sometimes life hides the truth from us until we are ready to see it. The children listened, trying to understand. The girl tilted her head slightly. "But you see it now." The son smiled gently. "Yes, I see it now." The boy closed his notebook. Then, without warning, both children moved closer to him, wrapping their arms around him, holding him tightly. A simple hug, but one that carried years of missing moments, years of waiting, years of love finally finding its place. Across the room, his mother stood quietly in the doorway, watching them, her eyes filled with tears again. But this time the tears were different. They were not born from fear, or guilt, or regret. They were tears of peace. For the first time in nearly a decade, the secret was gone. The family was whole. And the children she had protected for so many years were finally where they belonged, in the arms of their father. The house felt warmer than it had in years. Laughter echoed softly through the rooms. Life moved forward, not perfectly, but honestly. And sometimes that is all a family truly needs. Because sometimes the greatest success in life is not becoming a billionaire. It is finding the family you never knew you had.